Hey, this is Pastor Bunjee Garrett, and I want to take this opportunity to present you with another word of encouragement. Well, in case you haven't noticed already, the fearful leaders on the left, they're clearly pivoting from their COVID policies, especially as they begin to realize that the 2022 midterm election is quickly approaching. And seeing how the most recent approval rating poll of President Biden is the lowest it's ever been, well, I have no doubt that many of these political leaders, the ones who have been using the pandemic for their own political power, well, they're now beginning to realize how unpopular their policies actually are as they prepare to hopefully survive the midterm election. Now, with that being the case, it's no wonder that these authoritarians in the Democrat Party, they're beginning to realize that they need to quickly pivot if they're going to survive the 2022 midterm election. And it's for this reason that they're now adjusting their COVID restrictions as they pivot their position on mask mandates. And this is all despite the fact that their high priest of science has already warned us that we're still just in the first phase of the pandemic. As a matter of fact, it was just last month when the venerable Dr. Fauci, he took a break from doing all of his science-y things like, paying for puppies to be tortured or funding strange experiments with aborted baby body parts. He took a break from all of that and he stepped back into the spotlight in order to inform us that we're still in the first phase of the pandemic. That's right. As of January the 17th, Dr. Fauci assured us that we're still in the first phase of the pandemic. Oh, wait, what's this? In less than a month, we're no longer in the first phase? That's right. Fauci just informed us that the full-blown pandemic phase of COVID-19 is now over. Here's how he put it during a recent interview with Financial Times, and I quote Fauci here, "As we get out of the full-blown pandemic phase of COVID-19, which we are certainly heading out of, decisions will increasingly be made on a local level rather than centrally decided or mandated. There will also be more people making their own decisions on how they want to deal with the virus." Okay, gotcha. So last month, we were still in the first phase of the pandemic, but now in less than a month, we're now exiting the full-blown pandemic phase of COVID-19. And while it's true that the current case rates are in fact dropping, well, it's also true that we're barely on the backside of the largest spike of COVID cases since the beginning of the pandemic. And this, despite the fact that 76% of Americans have already received the Fauci ouchie. So then what is the science? What is the science that convinced Mr. Science to assure us now that we're finally heading out of the full-blown pandemic phase of COVID-19? Well, I'll just let Governor Ron DeSantis answer this question because he put it so beautifully yesterday when he declared, and I quote, "The medical science didn't change, the political science changed." Yeah, the medical science hasn't changed. It's the political science that's changed. Dr. Fauci just informed us that the full-blown pandemic phase of COVID-19 is almost over because that's what the political science demands. That's right. As we head towards the midterm election, the political science is forcing COVID to change. And the evidence of this can be seen in the fact that many Democrat governors are suddenly sounding more like Ron DeSantis. That's right. For example, New York Governor Kathy Hochul just pivoted as she announced the end of the indoor mask mandate there in New York. And while state officials assure us that the governor based her decision purely on the latest data, it seems to me that the data would lead us to believe that New York is just going to experience another wave of COVID come March. So what's the data that's leading her to now lift the mask mandate? What is this scientific data that she's appealing to? Following suit, the governor of California, Gavin Newsom, just announced that he's ending the indoor mask mandate while simultaneously informing unvaccinated people that they still need to wear their masks indoors because, the science and all. The governor of Illinois, J.B. Pritzker, has also announced that he's going to end their mask mandate, which requires face coverings in most indoor public settings. The governor of Massachusetts, Charlie Baker, also pivoted yesterday as he announced the end of the state's school mask mandate, which expires on February the 28th. And then the same pivot is also taking place there in New Jersey, Connecticut, Delaware, and Oregon, where indoor masking requirements are soon coming to an end. Now, I can't help but to remember, how the media was so quick to accuse Governor Abbott and Governor DeSantis of literally killing people back when they chose to lift their own mask mandates. And it was actually last March when Biden actually scolded Governor Abbott for repealing the mask mandate here in Texas. And here's how Biden put it back then, and I quote, "The last thing we need is Neanderthal thinking that in the meantime, everything is fine, take off our mask, forget it." Yeah, he was saying that just because we were having a dip in COVID cases doesn't mean that it's time to stop masking, because that's Neanderthal thinking. So let me see if I understand this correctly. According to Biden, when a Republican governor lifts a mask mandate, it's Neanderthal thinking. But when a bunch of Democrat governors lift their own mask mandates on the backside of the largest wave of COVID cases ever, well, it's because the science has determined that this is the right time to do this. Clearly, this is not about science. This is all politics as we, get closer and closer to the midterm elections. And according to data from the Federal Reserve and the Labor Department, the states that are led by Republican governors are overwhelmingly leading the economic recovery of our country. Now, that to me is an independent saying this. It's the information from the Federal Reserve and the Labor Department that tells us that it's the Republican governors who are leading the economic recovery of our country. And one reason why is because these governors have loosened pandemic restrictions that have actually allowed Americans to get back to work. The same data has also revealed that states led by Democratic governors have been lagging behind with steeper job losses and higher unemployment. And you better believe that these leaders are concerned about their midterm election. Not only that, but listen, the rhinos are also concerned about the primaries because, the primaries could end up causing them to lose their chance to run in the midterm election. And with all this being the case, it's time for freedom-loving Americans in every state to take our country back. It's time to take our country back by voting all of these tiny tyrants out of their positions. And listen, those who have been using the COVID crisis for their own political power, they should be shown the door. They should be shown the door as we send them packing this November. And this includes those who have been destroying our economy with unconstitutional mandates. And not only that, but it's time for us to oust every career politician who has somehow become super wealthy since taking office. All of these people who fail to understand that the government is supposed to be of the people, by the people, and for the people, they need to be sent back to school so that they can be reminded of the reality that they were elected to protect us from criminals, not to become one. With that being the case, it's time to vote these career criminals out of office so that we can stop groaning every time we go to the grocery store. I can't help but to remember something that King Solomon wrote in Proverbs 29. It's there where he declares, "When the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. But when a wicked man rules, the people groan." Are you groaning? Have you been groaning over the past year? Listen, within a year of Biden's election, 54.4% of Americans admit that they are groaning because of his decisions. And so if you're ready to see things turn around, then it's time to elect righteous leaders who have bowed a knee to the Lord Jesus Christ. Because when the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. Let's vote for leaders who are ready to conserve our constitutional rights. And let's vote for leaders who are ready to protect us from every criminal, including the tiny tyrants who end up in political office. With this as the goal, I encourage you, let's make plans to vote in the primaries and let's make plans to vote in the midterm election and so that we can prayerfully elect the right leaders who will lead us into righteousness. Let's seek out leaders who truly trust in the Lord Jesus Christ. And in this way, the Lord will help our nation to continue fighting the good fight of faith, and all for the glory of God.